Imagine a world where the future has already been foretold, and 2025 will change everything. Edgar Cayce, the renowned psychic with over 14,300 readings performed in a self-induced trance, made astonishing predictions with a 90% accuracy rate. But there's a forgotten secret buried within those readings. When he awoke from his trances, Cayce not only uncovered causes rooted in past lives, but also used his words to reverse the course of destiny. He believed we've all lived many lifetimes, and through our thoughts and actions, we can alter the future. Stay tuned until the end of the video to discover Edgar Cayce's predictions for 2025 that are gradually becoming reality. Don't forget to like and follow the channel so we can spread this sacred message to many more. And now, let's take a look back at his extraordinary life. Edgar Cayce was born on March 18, 1877, to a Catholic farming family in the peaceful countryside of Hopkinsville, Kentucky. From an early age, he displayed a special fascination with the Bible and an insatiable desire to understand more deeply the teachings of God's Word. Cayce wasn't like most children. He had an intense love for reading the Bible and sought guidance from God through prayer and contemplation. His life is not only the story of a humble man from Kentucky, but also a journey of discovering the connection between humanity and the spiritual power of the Creator. Cayce became a legend, not only in America, but worldwide, for his predictions about the future and his ability to heal through spiritual insight. At the age of 11, Cayce experienced what he believed to be a divine intervention. He claimed to have encountered a winged woman in a vision who asked him what he desired most in life. Without hesitation, Cayce responded that he wanted the ability to help others, particularly sick children. From this moment on, his journey as a prophet began, and he felt that God had answered his prayer by gifting him with a special ability to aid those in need. Cayce's gift was unique. He could enter a sleep-like state, what he referred to as a trance, during which he believed his spirit connected with a divine source of knowledge. In this state, Cayce would offer readings, which provided insights into health, spiritual matters, and even the future of humanity. What was remarkable is that Cayce had no memory of what he said after he woke from his trance, something many people believed to be a sign that his words were truly inspired by a higher power and not by his conscious mind. Cayce quickly became known as the sleeping prophet because of his ability to give prophecies and healing advice while in a sleep-like trance. For Cayce, this was not a natural human ability, but a gift from God, bestowed upon him to help others. He believed he was merely a vessel for God's messages, using his abilities to convey divine truths and assist those in need. His work was not for personal gain, but to fulfill the teachings of Jesus. Love your neighbor as yourself. Cayce never accepted payment for his readings, seeing his work as a form of service to God and humanity. For him, helping others was his way of practicing Christian charity and following the path of Christ. This deep sense of mission and selflessness distinguished him from many others claiming psychic abilities and solidified his reputation as a true servant of God. Cayce's readings covered a wide range of topics, from diagnosing illnesses to offering guidance on personal and spiritual matters. But it was his prophecies about global events and future trends that truly set him apart and made him one of the most well-known prophets in history. The prophecies that came true. Edgar Cayce made many predictions about the future, and some of them have come to pass, bolstering his reputation as a legitimate prophet. Let's take a look at some of his most significant prophecies and how they unfolded. 1. The stock market crash of 1929. One of Cayce's most famous predictions was about the stock market crash in 1929, which led to the Great Depression. In the early 1920s, the U.S. economy was booming, and most people believed the prosperity would continue indefinitely. However, Cayce issued a stark warning, advising his followers to be cautious with their investments and to sell their stocks before it was too late. When the stock market crashed on October 29, 1929, an event known as Black Tuesday, those who had heeded Cayce's warning were able to protect their wealth, while many others lost everything. This event cemented Cayce's reputation as a prophet who had insight into the future that others did not, and his credibility grew significantly. 2. The prediction of World War II. Another significant prophecy made by Cayce involved the outbreak of World War II. In the mid-1930s, as tensions in Europe were escalating, Cayce predicted that a great global conflict would soon erupt. He foresaw that Germany, led by an influential leader, would form an alliance with Japan and Austria, leading to a devastating war. Cayce also predicted that the United States would be drawn into the conflict by 1941, a prediction that came true when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, prompting the U.S. to enter the war. The accuracy of his predictions regarding the timeline and key players in the conflict solidified his status as a man who could foresee world events with remarkable precision. 3. China's rise as an economic superpower. One of Cayce's more long-term predictions, made during the 1930s, was about the rise of China as a global superpower. At the time, China was a struggling nation, deeply divided by internal conflict and poverty. However, Cayce predicted that China would emerge as a major spiritual and economic leader in the world. This prophecy has unfolded over the past few decades, as China has transformed into one of the most powerful and influential economies on the planet. From being a largely agrarian and underdeveloped nation, China has become an industrial and technological giant, playing a central role in global trade and economics. Cayce's vision of China's future as a key global power has thus come to pass, further establishing him as a prophet who could see far into the future. The Dead Sea Scrolls written by the Essenes were found, lending credence to Cayce's claims. All these grim predictions of Edgar Cayce came to pass in the 20th century. Fortunately, Edgar also made some gloomy predictions for us today. Are you ready for the biggest shock of your life? Here we go. Future predictions. Edgar Cayce made dramatic predictions about changes to the geography of the Earth. He said continents would shift, and the climate would transform the world in ways we could never imagine. He suggested this shift could occur simultaneously when volcanoes erupt at Mount Etna in Italy and Mount Pel in Martinique. Both volcanoes are indeed active. Mount Etna is one of the most active volcanoes in the world, and it recently erupted just a few months ago. A very different kind of light show was on display in Italy. Mount Etna is erupting again, sending hot lava down its snow-covered slopes. It is Europe's most active volcano. Mount Pel is also considered an active volcano, though its last major eruption was in 1902. One of the most critical aspects of this shift would occur in Africa. Cayce claims that the continent will split into 3 separate parts. This division, he claimed, would be caused by a massive new waterway forming as the Nile River widened and the Red Sea grew significantly. This dramatic change could even submerge the bustling city of Cairo beneath the sea. According to Cayce, Asia wouldn't escape these upheavals either. Think about changes in the geography of India, China, Japan, Korea, and the Philippines as we know them today. Cayce predicted that the Pacific Ocean would move and swallow large parts of land from the Philippines to Japan. This aqua invasion would submerge most of Japan, with only a handful of remaining islands. That's not all. The Korean peninsula and parts of China's coastline would also succumb to the rising seas. For India, Cayce offered a definite warning. He advised against seeking refuge in the country's higher elevations due to potential land buckling. Instead, he believed the Himalayas in Tibet and Nepal would offer a safer haven for the Indians. Cayce also made some not-so-beautiful predictions for Antarctica. Despite its harsh conditions, Antarctica supports a lot of wildlife, including penguins, seals, whales, and seabirds. The Antarctic ice sheet provides essential habitats for many of these species and breeding grounds for their young. It also shelters them from predators and provides access to food. But Cayce said Antarctica would shed its icy coat, transforming into a lush, green expanse, perfect only for agriculture. However, he said Australia wouldn't be as lucky. He predicted flooding would claim a quarter of its land, turning the Adelaide area into a submerged city, and ironically, changing its arid deserts like Simpson and Gibson into fertile farmland. On the other hand, he predicted that New Zealand would escape unscathed and expand. He said New Zealand would connect with Australia to become a haven for those displaced by the global upheavals. We don't mean to break your heart, but even Europe would have its share of this geographical disruption. What you are about to hear will blow your mind. Cayce foresaw much of Northern Europe, including Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Denmark, submerging, leaving behind a fragmented archipelago of islands. The United Kingdom wouldn't fare much better, with vast areas from Scotland down to the English Channel succumbing to the rising seas. However, he said some pockets of high ground, including London and Birmingham, might manage to cling to survival. Finally, he predicted Ireland would be almost entirely swallowed by the ocean, with only the highest peaks remaining above the waterline. This may be good news for lovers of oceans, because the Earth's waters are about to get bigger. Cayce predicted a new sea would form by merging the Caspian, Black, and Baltic Seas. This will effectively cut Russia from mainland Europe and stretch to Siberia. He said this would position Russia as the food basket of Europe because much of its land would become a fertile agricultural powerhouse. The most shocking part was yet to come. If you are not tired of Edgar Cayce's obsessions with continental drift, here's another one. He predicted a complete change in the geography of North America. He claimed Canada would see its coastline expand by a staggering 200 miles, transforming regions like Quebec, Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and parts of Alberta into safe havens for those displaced from Asia and Europe. According to his forecasts, the North American plate will shift, and this movement will create a chain of nearly 150 new islands off the coast of California. This seismic shift would also see the West Coast migrate eastward towards Nebraska, Wyoming, and Colorado. But what about the lakes? Cayce believed the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence River wouldn't be spared either. They would merge into a single body of water flowing from the Mississippi River to the Gulf of Mexico. The East Coast wouldn't be so fortunate. Cayce predicted extensive flooding along the entire coastline, from Maine to Florida, submerging much land. The coasts of Mexico would also suffer from this aqua invasion. He said the shores of Mexico would submerge under the rising seas. What we are about to reveal sounds scary. Cayce claimed that the Baja California Peninsula would be fractured into a collection of islands. He warned that these dramatic changes would displace and potentially kill billions of people. The surprising fact is that he claimed even the quiet, rural lands of Kentucky would not be immune to the coming devastation. Cayce predicted that there would be a dramatic extension of human lifespans, with people living for as long as several centuries. While we live longer than people did in Cayce's time, living for centuries seems far from our current reality. Another prediction is about a major global conflict. Cayce believed that the Persian Gulf would be the flashpoint of the conflict. He suggested that countries like Libya, Egypt, Syria, and even the waters near Australia would experience active hostility. Thankfully, such a large-scale war hasn't started yet. Perhaps the most unusual prediction involved China. Cayce sees it rising to a global leadership position, even becoming the cradle of Christianity, or a significant center for Christianity. He acknowledged that this transformation would take many generations, but China would ultimately become a dominant force in the Christian world. Cayce also had some controversial beliefs about the past and future of humanity. He predicted a westward to eastward movement of civilization, with China taking the lead. His most controversial prediction involved human origins. He said 5 distinct human races were created simultaneously at different locations on Earth. According to him, life began at the same time with these races that were white, black, red, brown, and yellow. God placed each strategically across the globe. He claimed that the red people were the Atlanteans, who resided on a lost continent called Lemuria. He believed they evolved faster and developed technology faster than any other race. Cayce also claims that Native Americans were directly related to the lost civilization of Atlantis, specifically the Cherokee people. However, the Cherokees have a long history going back about 12,000 years, which is close to when Atlantis supposedly sank. Cayce claims that the survivors of Atlantis fled to the Americas and became the Cherokee and Inca. But that's not all. He also believed in another lost land called Lemuria, located between Europe and America. According to him, people from Lemuria also fled and ended up in Greece, founding the Minoan civilization. He even thought they might have shared their advanced engineering skills with the Egyptians at some point. But his next suggestions will challenge everything you think you know. He said, "We are still going to evolve from our current form." He said there has been a progressive evolutionary leap that began a staggering 18 million years ago. He believed life itself emerged when the spirit transformed into matter. Further, he claimed that humanity underwent a significant evolutionary jump between 10,000 BC and 3000 BC. Edgar Cayce's ideas about the evolution of humankind did not exist in the past. He spoke of a future where we would boast significant advancements. According to him, a new phase of human progress began in 3000 BC and is expected to continue until our current era, or the year 2400 CE. He believed we would achieve significant leaps in our knowledge and understanding during this period. But the next prediction of Cayce is even more unbelievable. He claims there would be a dramatic transformation around the year 8000. By then, humans would have gone past the limitations of our minds, reaching a point where traditional societal structures and even schools would become obsolete. In this future, humanity would evolve into a race of enlightened super beings. However, it is essential to note that Cayce made some very controversial prophecies that never came to pass. Even his biggest fans have denounced some of them. For example, he said that souls came to Earth and mixed with animals to create giant people 12 feet tall. He also thought a giant crystal powered by the sun ran the lost civilization of Atlantis. There is no proof of either event. Another prediction was that the US would find a death ray in 1958, the same kind that supposedly destroyed Atlantis 12,000 years ago. In the 1930s, he said giant earthquakes would ruin Los Angeles and San Francisco, but those cities are still here. Those aren't his only predictions that have failed. For instance, while many religions like Christianity and Islam talk about Jesus coming back to Earth someday, none of them provide a definite date. Edgar Cayce also had his guess about when Jesus would return. He said it would happen in the year 2000. Well, it's 2024 now, and Jesus hasn't shown up yet. It turns out that Edgar and other people who had made predictions about this were wrong. Some other folks who guessed wrong include religious leader Frank Cherry, Pastor Ed Dobson, and even Timothy Dwight, the president of Yale University way back in the 1700s. Cayce's followers haven't explained why these predictions didn't come true. What do you think about these claims? Support and criticism of Edgar Cayce. Experts across various disciplines have made efforts to study and unravel the mysteries of Cayce's work. They ask themselves whether he was truly connected to some higher universal truth, or if he was simply a man with an extraordinary mind capable of deep reasoning. Edgar Cayce delivered over 14,300 readings, and with such a vast number, it's statistically likely that some predictions would align with real-world events. However, critics often point out that these accurate predictions tend to overshadow his many misses. Moreover, the vague language Cayce sometimes used, such as perhaps and maybe, mirrors tactics used by fortune tellers, allowing general statements to be interpreted to fit almost any circumstance. Detractors also mention that Cayce often received letters from people who were ill. He would enter a trance to diagnose their conditions. The problem was that some of these individuals had already passed away by the time he conducted his readings. Cayce's supporters argue that if these people had followed his advice while they were still alive, they might not have died. While this may be true, another issue arises. Shouldn't someone have informed him that the person had already passed? If Cayce was truly connected to the spirit world or a universal consciousness, it seems odd that he only gave these readings after the person had died. Another example of Cayce's failed predictions includes a case where he provided a specific location for buried pirate treasure. People searched tirelessly for it but came up empty-handed. Supporters excused this by suggesting that perhaps the spirits of pirates or Native Americans were trying to deceive everyone. This raises the question of whether unseen forces are too conveniently blamed when things don't go according to plan. Despite the criticism, Cayce still has passionate defenders. His supporters emphasize the accuracy of some of his diagnoses and advice to the sick, despite having no formal medical training. These examples, combined with a general fascination with psychic phenomena, contribute to his enduring legacy. A recent poll found that nearly half of Americans believe in some form of extrasensory perception or psychic ability. The poll also revealed distinct differences in thinking between believers and skeptics. Skeptics tend to approach such phenomena with analytical and critical thinking, while believers are more likely to adopt emotional and creative perspectives. Interestingly, the poll also showed that believers reported higher levels of happiness and lower stress than skeptics. The truth is that psychic abilities and religious miracles cannot be explained by science. However, they undoubtedly offer comfort to those grieving, hope to those in need, and can even provide a sense of order in a chaotic world. So, does the supernatural exist? It's a question no one can answer definitively. While many psychics may just be looking to profit from people's pain, Edgar Cayce was different. He never charged for his services and genuinely wanted to help others. Whether his abilities were supernatural or the result of an incredibly active imagination, what truly matters is the life Cayce dedicated to serving others. In today's world, we need more people like him, people who see themselves as part of something bigger, not as the center of the universe, people who are willing to look out for one another. So, was Edgar Cayce a genuine prophet? The answer remains uncertain. What is clear, however, is that the world could use more compassion and selflessness, traits that Cayce embodied, whether or not his abilities were real. For those who have stayed with us until the end, here's a fun fact. Did you know that Edgar Cayce was often called the sleeping prophet? This was because he delivered most of his readings while in a trance-like state. Imagine the wealth of wisdom we could unlock if we learned to tap into our subconscious minds as Cayce did. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey into the mysteries of Edgar Cayce's life and work. If you've enjoyed this discussion and want to explore more captivating stories about the past, the wonders of the human mind, and insights into the future, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Don't forget to like this video and stay tuned for our next revelation.